y'all. It is actually late at night. Gonna be keeping it a little bit on the lowerness because I do have nephews sleeping upstairs. And I don't think they would appreciate being woken up by a very rambunctious, hey all y'all. So here we are right now. We're just gonna do a very, kind of not that it's like non-planned, just kind of a obviously no makeup. I have my skincare. Look at the beautiful work I've been doing. And I'm congested as all get out, so this is quality content right here for y'all. But I'm just going to be talking about some things that obviously have come up with the new Jeffree. I was trying to say like Jeffree and Shane Dawson, so it came out Jeffree. Their new documentary series. Obviously it hasn't been finished when I'm going to be putting this up. I believe there'll be 2 episodes up. I will leave those linked down below to watch. And I feel like this is important to talk about because like a lot of times anytime I come on here to talk about other influencers, it's like drama and like scandals and allegedly and controversies, when in reality this series thus far is less scandal. Like obviously it's like tea and scandal in like the whatever of it, but it's like honestly kind of just life. And I just wanted to go over, this isn't going to be like a point by point completely psychoanalyzing and going through every little bit, and I am going to be focusing more on the second video because I feel like a lot of what I want to talk about and address just comes from that video. And the first thing I wanted to just kind of, like I said, this doesn't have any really like points or whatever, anything like that. I'm just gonna do my thing. If that's not the type of video you want to see, click out right now. I'm sure there are plenty other videos, people addressing this that you can go watch. But I was a fan of Shane Dawson. I have been a fan and watching his content since about 2006. So that would be Q 16-year-old Soraya. I loved his videos, his skits. Shanae was the shiz. Like he was so comically brilliant. And I mean, when his line came out actually at Hot Topic, and this is kind of one of the things where you like bring it back home to like, oh snap, you know, that was a thing. When he had his merchandise at Hot Topic, I bought it. I had like Shane Dawson t-shirts. I had this one blue one that I absolutely loved, and that when it finally like bit the dust, I was so sad. And I think one of the things that's really important that was brought to light in this is the fact that, you know, if you look at Shane and you see how long he's been on the platform, you see the, you know, notoriety that he has, the 22 million subscribers, you look at his view count. From an outside point of view, especially, you know, like someone like me looking at his credentials, you wouldn't think that he was quote unquote unsuccessful. From someone just like me looking in at what he's doing, you're like, okay, he's made it. He's good. He's down, you know. He's top tier YouTube stardom. And then when the reality was sort of exposed, I mean, I admit I watched the second one and there were times when I was tearing up and I was crying because there really is this kind of like, this isn't just all like scandals or anything. This is just like the real life of a YouTuber. And sort of I think why this series is so important and pertinent is because it's not only addressing like beauty community things, it's addressing YouTube things. And while YouTube is great, I have a platform to express myself on. YouTube is great to a certain collection / group of people. Like you look at people like, you know, we're going to be naming names, Tana Mojo, Emma Chamberlain, Jaclyn Hill, Jeffree Starr in all honesty, the Dolan twins, Logan and Jake Paul. You know, these YouTubers who have got this like huge, massive, and like Shane was saying, you know, you look at them and they're worth 10 million and 20 million and 8 million. And Shane's like, yeah, I'm like in like the top teeny tiny percentile. You're like, wow. Like it, like I said, from looking in, I would have thought that Shane, you know, was in that, you know, I've made it category. When in cold, harsh reality, that just isn't the case. And if it, you know, weren't for this type of document or this type of series, sorry, you know, would we know? Would we really be able to, kind of see the more realistic side of being a YouTuber? Because whenever we think about, being on YouTube and being big, we think of all the wonderful accolades and getting to go to events and getting all kinds of like brand deals and everything like that. And, according to that sort of logic, Shane should have been like rolling in it. I mean, back in the day, he was like the YouTuber, at least in my opinion, allegedly. And so it almost really like it hurts. It really does when you realize and you see firsthand sort of him actually experiencing the real raw emotions of how it is for this one big YouTuber who, for all perceived notions and purposes, is a big person on the platform. And in reality, he hasn't got, nothing. And when you think about, the times that he'd been, screwed over or used, and it's like what Jeffree said, you're nice, but you're naive. And sometimes that can be a fault, that especially when you're in this sort of industry. I remember back when I wanted to be in the fashion industry, I was like, I'm going to be a designer. It's going to be great. And then I started like reading a bunch of books about getting into the fashion industry. And I was like, no, because I just wasn't, that type of person. In order to really make it, you had to be very aggressive, very, almost cutthroat, and being willing to like put people under the bus and to raise yourself up. And to a certain degree in business or in any type of thing where you're dealing with this sort of thing, where you're competing with others, that kind of is a harsh reality of it. And so that in and of itself was honestly heartbreaking and very eye-opening. And I think it is important for people, for anyone, honestly, anyone who watches the platform, anyone who is on the platform trying to grow, to kind of have that like reality where instead of just looking at these like big, ginormous, super successful, popular YouTubers and be like, oh, wow, look at that, and take a moment to think and be like, look, what you see on YouTube, and this is very important, what the viewer sees on YouTube is honestly just a teeny tiny fragment of the reality behind the creator. You're seeing what they film and what they edit out and what they want to put in. You're literally seeing what they want you to see. And so oftentimes we can be all like, oh, well, we see this like pretty painted picture and be like, oh, well, everything is sunshine, roses, and daisies. When in reality, there is a lot of struggle. And I think part of the problem with that is sort of kind of this awful mentality, and this is obviously me projecting onto a situation, but that awful mentality of people love to support you when you're doing great. The time when you learn who your true friends and your true whatevers are is when you are struggling, when you're having a down day, or you're not as popular, or you aren't doing as good, or you're not on the same level as them. That's when people start getting a little bit scarce, because when you're doing good, they're vibing off of you. They're like, oh, this is great, this is wonderful, and they're positive, and it's fan-tucking-fastic. But when, you're having a bit of a struggle and you're having a hard time coming up with things, more often than not, people are less willing to support you. And I think there's kind of that like, because obviously Shane has dealt with a lot of things in his life, and so has Jeffree. I mean, say what you will about Jeffree, neither of these two men have had an easy life. It's not been a handed on a whatever to them. It's not been, they weren't born into this. They have worked for what they have. And I feel like there's a lot of like, not wanting to put stuff out there, because what have we seen in the past in any part of the YouTube, in any social media? You put something out, whether it be bad or good, and people are going to take what they want out of it and then kind of twist it and turn it and manipulate it into what they need to hear. And there's a lot of, like fear about putting stuff out there like that, because, despite what it may seem, and despite, you know, the 1% versus the rest of the percent on YouTube, you know, it's like there's still people too. You know, they have insecurities, they have flaws, they have issues, and when you're put in such a high spotlight, it can be absolutely terrifying to put yourself out there because, you know, you have a lot to lose. So I really do think that it's been, I mean, that was one of the things where I was like, yes, this is so great, because it's not just, like I said, it's not just exposing the beauty community, it's opening up about this platform on a whole, which quite frankly, YouTube, demonetize me, do whatever you want. YouTube only cares about a certain amount of creators. YouTube is not a all for one for all type platform. Let's just be real. So there is that. Another thing I wanted to address that I think is just absolutely just for someone who is definitely a very paycheck to paycheck person, this was just and that is kind of starting in with like the whole, you know, Shane, and you're just like, oh, Shane, you deserve so much. You're so pure and must be protected at all costs. Is when they were discussing kind of like, oh, well, what would your percentages be? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'd get 30, right? And the dude's like, no, you'd be getting 70 and we'd be getting 30. And Shane is just overall there looking like this. And then that kind of leading into like, you know, how much stock and how much, you know, whatever you're going to get out of it. And then Jeffree finally, after all these years, for anyone who's been watching T channels for a while in the beauty community, talked about the whole Nikkie Tutorials and Too Faced thing, which, I mean, friggin' just, oh my heavens. Because on the outside, once again, on the outside, looking at me, you know, paycheck to paycheck, I'm very blue collar, I guess, I don't know. And they're like, okay, well, they gave her $50,000. And I'm thinking, damn, I'd like to have $50,000. A lot of my problems would be vindicated with $50,000. And then the fact that they had their profit, which was 11 million, and then I think they said she got like 0.05% is what that $50,000 in comparison to the whole, you know, influx, the $1 million. And you're like, wow, that is like, I mean, that is seriously like peanuts money. Like, considering the fact that Nikkie Tutorials, her face on everything, her helping create it, her having, you know, her face on the campaign, as well as her promoting it on her huge platform, is what generated that $11 million in sales. You're like, I think she deserves a little bit more of that cut, Jared. I think you're sipping fine on the champagne right now. And once again, like, this is so, this whole, like, thus far, this whole series, I think is going to be just, I mean, the world, the YouTube platform, I mean, and the beauty, just everything. Viva Revolution. We're just all going to be up in flames because this is talking about the beauty community. This is talking about YouTube as a whole. This is talking about, you know, beauty brands. This is talking about consumerism and business. Because there really is so much that we don't know. In today's, sorry, I'm sorry if I'm like not specifically talking about sometimes when I go off, if I'm not talking about like things that are directly related to the series. If this video doesn't do well, oh well, I wanted to film it. But when it comes to kind of our consumeristic world, America, or just the world, but you know, I'm in America, how just consumeristic heavy we are. And I'm a great consumer. I'm a horrible, great consumer, as we can, you know, say, because I love buying crap I don't need. And when it comes to marketing, there is so much that we don't know about, because I said on my Twitter, because ignorant people make the best consumers, because we aren't aware of what goes into the production of something. We aren't aware of, you know, how percentages are divvied out, or even what the right moral percentages to give someone. And I feel like it was like, so, you know, there was going back and forth and everything like that. And then when Jeffree was telling Shane, it was like, oh yeah, you know, you could take away 5 million from this. And Shane was like, and once again, like, maybe I'm just limited mind and ignorant, because, you know, I'm like, okay, he's got 22 million subscribers. I mean, like, at least $1 a subscriber, you know, that should be at least 22 million. But then it's like, no, it's not. And he's just getting this. It's like, you know, within this whole, once again, it goes back to being cutthroat. It goes back to being, it really is a sense of, it used to be on the platform, although this is kind of like a throwback on the used to be on the platform because Shane's been here since, day one, where you were able to get by on creativity, on personality. And whereas now it's how well can you maneuver, who do you know, who can you kiss up to, who can you go see to help make your way to the top, which that honestly is just a part of any kind of social climbing situation. I mean, I'm a beauty lifestyle commentary channel, and I'm competing with every other beauty lifestyle and commentary channels. We are saturated within this lovely community because, as we put videos out, we've got competition from every all whateverness. And I think it's just a really good thing for us to start being more informed, for us to care more about, what's going out, what's coming in, how it affects us and everything like that. And I understand that's going to create a whole lot of whatever, because if there's one thing YouTube likes to do, it likes to blow up over people who have different opinions. And there was a quote, I believe, from Gary Oldman, who was like, just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean I hate you. And YouTube's forgotten that. It's like, oh, you don't agree with me? Or maybe it's not just YouTube. Maybe it's just the world we live in right now. It's like, oh, you don't think the same way I do. You don't agree with me. Then you, by, flaw of your own, you hate me. When in reality, on a lot of things, people can agree to disagree. I mean, I can't tell you how many times me and my grandfather agreed to disagree. And I just kind of keep going back to that, the fact that this is going to be, and I understand it sounds all like, whatever, talking about, oh, this channel is going to be the start to a new era. But it kind of is. Because previously, we haven't talked about, cost per pallet and then, upcharge and everything like that. And I think it's a wonderful thing at how transparent Jeffree has been and explaining kind of his, reasoning and his, the artistic whateverness behind his company, because, it hasn't been talked about. And, everyone's going to be all up in hue and cry about, because we know instinctively, I would like to think most of us know, that goods that we purchase typically have a huge markup. I mean, this goes into beauty, this goes into clothing, this goes into basically any sort of luxury item that we can get. They have a huge markup value compared to what it costs to be produced. And it's like Jeffree said, certain stuff can be made in the USA, stuff that's going to be outsourced to, say, China, it's manufactured a lot cheaper. And so not only are we talking about, the cost in the beauty community, about how much it's gonna, per pallet and everything like that, we're talking about, just consumerism on a whole, and the absurdity of this, this level of oversaturation, this level of, marking up the prices, and all of this stuff that just really makes up the deep, darkest core of all of this, is finally being addressed by someone who can be considered, aka Jeffree, who is a YouTuber, who is a company owner, who can come out and talk about these things with a level of authority. Whereas if some other, like me, got on here and be like, y'all, I ain't got no degree, I don't have a business, but let me tell you what, I'd be laughed off the platform. And I really do hope, kind of drawing back directly to the video, I really, really do hope that this is going to be it for Shane. Like, not like he's done, but this is going to be kind of his catalyst into the life he would like to be living. Because I'm sorry, with someone who's worked as hard as he has on this platform, and for someone who has done as much as he has, he deserves a little something something. He deserves to have a little bit of comfort. I mean, I don't know about you all, but I'm already starting to save up. But as soon as that collection drops, I mean, I do foresee, if you're coupling people who, like Jeffree, who are already consumers of his makeup, people who like Shane. I mean, I have a friend of mine, she was like, I don't do makeup, but I'm gonna buy it. Because people are gonna want to be supporting Shane. I honestly gonna see this as like gonna be one of the biggest, oh my goodness, biggest releases Jeffree has ever done, because there's just going to be so much pull from two different, very dynamic people. And in all honesty, I am all here for it. I really hope that in the series, I know this is going to be like, although let me tell you one thing real quick. Your girl sometimes isn't the smartest tool in the shed, the brightest bulb in the chandelier. And you know how it's like, this was filmed in February 2019, right? And we got to that scene where Jeffree was all like, oh, this stuff is sister's apparel, and he's like a little brother to me, and I'm so happy to see how he's doing. And I'm over here like, what, did they make up all really good? Wow, really? They made up? And I was like, wait, that drama hadn't happened yet. So this is gonna sound horrible, but I am super interested to see if that plays into any sort of what's being filmed here. And I also really, really hope that they do get to eventually kind of go into like, Jeffree before being a beauty guru, talking about his music, talking about his influence in the alternative and scene and music industry, because that's how I knew him. I remember seeing his, I knew him when Beauty Killer was an album, not an eyeshadow palette. And to this day, I still listen to that music. I mean, that was some of the stuff, that was some of the like totally like, I mean, I was in on this when Jeffree's body was only like 65% covered in tattoos. So I would really love for them to kind of go into that and see some of that. And I'm honestly just so excited to see what this series is going to expose. Not in the sense of like, oh, let's spill the beauty community tea. I'm like, whatever. I'm done. I'm so far gone with that. But what it's going to expose and explain and put to light what really goes on with the YouTube and sponsorships, because there's so much for people like me, smaller people who are like trying to find their way within this and figuring out how to do things, because we don't know. There is no how to become a famous YouTuber manual. And it would be so wonderful to see, because people who are popular are not talking. Even like smaller YouTubers, we're talking in like the I want to say like 50K and up. Like that's when you're starting to reach 100K is when you reach a new level tier of small. Even those people aren't talking, you're just like, hey, what are you doing? How do you get, sponsorships? How do you get brands to reach out to you? Do you just wait for them to come to you, or do you like beg? Because there is no manual, and people aren't talking, because when people are successful, they don't like sharing. So I am really, really excited for all of that is going to be coming out. I mean, it's gonna be something. I mean, 2020 is gonna be like, it's gonna be lit, it's gonna be woke, it's gonna be, they're gonna be fire and pitchforks and all kinds of whateverness. But I'm honestly kind of here for it, because, I live for that sort of thing. Sorry if this was kind of more of like a ramble, not make any sense.
You didn't even talk about the series.
That's okay. I just wanted to talk about some things that sort of came to my attention, and kind of wanted to just talk about the thoughts that I have, because I love commenting with you guys and getting your guys' opinions on all different sorts of matters, because oftentimes y'all will say something, I'm like, oh, I did not think of it that way. So obviously, let me know what you think about this series. I know several of you have been, following and doing whatever, kind of like I'm doing. Let me know what you hope to see in the upcoming episodes. Let you know what you thought about bleh. Let me know what you thought about what I talked about, and I will see you guys in the next one. I love you, and as always, keep it real. Mwah.